Hello, everyone. How are we doing today? All right, guys. Well, thank you all for coming out for today's presentation and recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day. Today we have the pleasure of learning from Darius Coombs. He was the Cultural Outreach Coordinator for the Mashpee Wampanoag Education Department. He was also the former director of the Wampanoag Indigenous Program at the Plymouth Patuxet Museums for over 30 years. Additionally, over his career, he's worked with the Smithsonian, the History Channel, National Geographic, Scholastic, and more. He's a very impressive guy. And we have the privilege of listening to his 13 Moons presentation today. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome to today's presenter, Darius Coombs.
Thank you, Kirstin. Waniki sakni tampa nakis? Sure. Sure. That means good afternoon, everybody. How you doing today, friends? You having a good day so far? Yes. And thank you, Kirstin. Thank you for the Senior Center for having me up here in Attleboro. I love to travel. I love to meet new people, and education is what I do. So I am Mashpee Wampanoag. I have a wife who's Wampanoag also, and 4 children, 4 girls and 2 grandchildren. Yeah. Actually, I'm going to Virginia tomorrow to see one of my daughters down in Virginia. She lives down there now for a week. What we're going to do today is it's a 13 moon presentation, which means 1 full year for our people. So there's 13 moons in 1 year. I'm going to send you on a roller coaster ride, so you got to strap on your seatbelts right now. There's going to be a lot of emotion going through this. And what I do is teach the true history, what happened to our culture over the years, going back 12,000 years to present day. So you get to hit pieces of our history, and it will allow you guys to do your own research too. Like we've gone through a lot, our culture's gone through a lot, ups and downs, and what you'll hear all today. But you have to start back over 12,000 years, right? And for Wampanoag people, like I said, that's how long we've been here, or maybe even longer. And for our population at one time, we probably peaked over 100,000 people, right? All around Massachusetts and parts of Rhode Island. And amongst these 100,000 people, we had about 70 Wampanoag communities. So if you went back in time and went up to my area, right, and say, hey, what are you? I wouldn't say Wampanoag, because Wampanoag is a nation of people. I would expect you to know that already. I'll tell you what Wampanoag speaking community I'm from. I say I'm Mashpee, what are you? If I'm around Plymouth area, I'll say I'm a Patuxet, what are you? Middleborough, Namasket, what are you? So these names might sound familiar. They've taken on town names today, but they've always been Wampanoag communities. And that 100,000 went down to 15, 20,000 today. And how that happened, we're going to get into. So that decreased maybe 80%, you know. And that decrease happened within 2 or 3 years too. So that's your base right there. And for our people, we celebrate New Year's like everybody, right? But we celebrate when everything comes to life. Think about that. When does everything come to life? When do the birds start chirping? When do the flowers start coming out? It makes sense because everything's new again, right? And where you sit, where I stand, is who we are as a people. There's no difference between us and Mother Earth. We're all considered to be one. That's our belief, right? And if we're here to take care of it, you take care of Mother Earth, it's going to take care of you. It's all one unit right there. And during our New Year celebration, this is actually a Mashpee Wampanoag powwow. If you haven't been, please come by. July 4th weekend goes on for 3 days. We invite the public, right? We usually have over 10,000 guests over the weekend on July 4th. But during our New Year celebration, we dance, we sing, we give thanks to Mother Earth, we give thanks to the Creator for us being here, you know? And then we come out from our communities, in which our winter communities might hold 3,000 to 5,000 people. When we break up into family groups, like 4 generations, we come out near the ocean. We come out near the rivers. And that's when we live in homes like you see here. This is our summer houses, right? This is a cattail mat-covered house. The cattail itself is a water plant. And it's all hand woven by the woman. It's a woven stitch up top, and you have running stitches. You know, you guys seen the cattail, right? It has a brown fluffy part up top. That part right there, we break up into use for a baby's diaper. Yeah. Well, the plant itself, it has a natural cup to it, right? Look at a cattail when you see one next time. Look at the natural cup. And when the girls are making the mats, halfway through, they half twist the cattail reed itself and continue sewing across. And when they half twist the cattail reed, the rain comes right down. So it's like a gutter. So the houses are waterproof. They allow a breeze to come through. Like this house right here would hold probably about 6 people, 6 to 8. And we lived outside. You only went inside when the weather conditions would get really severe. They get warm though. If you want to you can have fires inside. They're made for bedding, which you'll see in a minute. But the best way I can describe how we lived during the spring and summer, if you ever been out to the Midwest, right? And you see a farmhouse, you see fields. You drive up road a little bit more, see another farmhouse and more fields. That's how we live. If you're on a canoe looking on shore. A very famous map was made by Samuel Champlain back in 1605. He came to what is known as Plymouth today. He drew a map. He went into the bay, really, the native people invited him in, but his boats were too heavy. So he did some trading. He was fascinated how our fishing line was so strong. He compared it to what he had over France, right? But he drew a map of the houses in the fields. You live within shouting distance of each other. A planting field for one family would probably take up 2 or 3 acres of land. And that's because over 2/3 of your diet was corn, beans, squash, watermelon, pumpkins, sunflowers. So you needed your space, but you live close enough so you can do communal events. You can celebrate the strawberry Thanksgiving. You can do your harvest feast, right? And mainly the women take care of the fields because the women are considered to be the givers of life. They give life to babies, but they also give life to Mother Earth. While the men kind of alter life, right? So that was the woman's responsibility during the spring mainly. Kids can do whatever they want. Those were actually my 2 daughters. 2 of my youngest, right? They're a little older now. But this is from Scholastic. I work with Scholastic, right? Back in 2016, they came to us and said, hey, Darius, we want to make a documentary about Wampanoag children back in the Pilgrims' times. Yeah. I said, we've done that already. If you're going to do that, if we're going to do that, you have to show what kids do today. And there's a video called The Wampanoag Way, which goes across the United States for all 3rd graders, right? Every kid watches it. It shows Tashima and Storm being in the 17th century in their clothing here, but it also shows Tashima and Storm riding bikes, having their backpack going to school, playing in the playground, what kids do today. They're just a different culture, right? They're still kids, and that's how people relate to today. He's just like me. Yeah, we're just no different. We come from the human race. Times have changed. We don't dress like this as much anymore. We have different clothing, but kids were encouraged to play a lot until they got older. Names changed though. You can go through 4 or 5 different names in a lifespan. As you would change yourself, and names would change also to fit how you are. Like what Tashima means is one who lifts up. And the reason we call that because she wakes up in a good mood most of the time every single day. I ask kids that, you guys wake up in a good mood? Like, no. So her name might change later on. What they're picking, I hope not. What they're picking is sumac berry. Not all sumac's poisonous. This is a stagcorn sumac. I'm sure you have this around here, right? We boil that into a tea, and that has 3 times as much vitamin C as orange juice does. If you're gonna make tea, just use the berry. Don't use the shaft itself because that's poisonous. Just the berry. We call it a Wampanoag lemonade. This is my wife and I right there. And fishing, big part of our culture. That right there has not been interrupted, right? You can hear me use the term interrupted, normal. This was normal, never stopped. And people still today make a living out of fishing. We go for anything on the water, we can go for flounder, bass, pickerel, trout, salmon, clams, mussels, crabs. We go fishing in our boats, which we call mashunashes, dugout canoes made by fire. Now, the biggest boat we would have would probably hold about 40 people. 40 people, 1 tree. I tell folks, you gotta put yourself back in time. And we had trees over 150 foot in height, over 6 foot wide. So would not have been unusual seeing a 30 or 40 man boat going out to Nantucket Island. We did it all the time like it was going across the street. We have 3 different recordings of Europeans seeing our 40 man boats being sailed out to Nantucket. Sailed. Yeah. I'll tell you a story about Nantucket, right? After a very famous chief, Massasoit, had died in 1660, his son took over leadership in a comet, known as King Philip, right? We'll talk about him later too. And he heard a native person on Nantucket, a praying Indian, talking really bad stuff about his father. So what he did, he went to a place called New Bedford today, got a lot of his men together, and took like 20, 40-man boats up to Nantucket. He found that guy. He didn't have a good day, though. Definitely didn't have a good day. But shell fishing was very big still is today. You guys like lobster?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We use lobster as fishing bait. We had so much lobster, we'd go down the beach at low tide and pick lobster right off the beach. You go back 100 years ago, lobster was fed to prisoners in jail. And actually the prisoners had a big uprising and said, we don't want no more. So the state of Massachusetts had to make a law that you only can feed lobster to prisoners twice a week. If you did it any more than that, it was considered to be inhumane. So a lot of fishing during the spring and summer. I do a lot of shell fishing myself, even ice fishing during the winter. For thousands of years we've been doing this. This is a kind of house. Let's go back here. So that's, in a nutshell, how we live. We gather berries, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries. We drink a lot of teas, a lot of water. We fish a lot, we plant a lot, we gather. We take care of our children, right? Our elders. And come after harvest time, we have to go inland during the winter. Inland might be a half mile to a mile, or maybe 3 miles. You're looking for a large settlement of woods or a very steep valley to move into to get protection from the wind, okay? That's the biggest thing. And no reason for separation at that time. That's when you gather together into your communities that would hold thousands of people. So you're looking at more or less like small towns, okay? 3,000 to 5,000, say. Each community would have their own leader. A lot of people think, oh, Massasoit, the great chief. Yeah, he might have been a great chief of one Wampanoag community of Pokanoket. The reason Massasoit is so famous is that's who the Pilgrims dealt with, right? In 1621. That's who they wrote about a lot. So everybody thinks Massasoit governed all the Wampanoag people, and he didn't. As far as we know, he didn't, unless we, you know. But come in the winter, we go live in houses like you see here. This is a bark covered house. The interior frame you'll see in a minute is made out of cedar. I build these houses myself. I did about 4 this year. I peel the bark, right? There's only a certain time of year when you can peel the bark off the tree, and that's during the springtime. And that's when the sap runs up and down the tree. So you got wood, you got bark. The sap goes up, separates the two. Cut around bottom, cut around top, slice down the middle, and it peels right off. It's like a banana, right? And when you do this, normally your interior frame will be done. So when you bring the bark back, you can put it right onto your house, you know, mold nicely, right? Houses were normally about 100, 200 foot in length during the winter, would hold 10, 20 families, probably being somehow related on the inside. We found one of the largest footprints of a house. It was found in Worcester, right? This footprint was 360 foot in length and over 60 foot in width. And I tell kids, I go, if you're not good with numbers, think of a football field. That's how big this house was. Was it just a house? In my opinion, no. Because out there, this is where we ended, right? And that's where the Nutmeg people began, another nation of people. So it could have been a nation house, a gathering house of different nations. So that's what I think. So. But these houses will last probably about 20 years. We did doing repairs every day. They got really warm, you know, extremely warm in the winter, as warm as you wanted to get. They got so warm that the Pilgrims wrote down, they saw little kids running outside naked during the winter and jumping into the snow. Rule of thumb, when you're making these houses, every 10 foot or so, you have a fire pit. So. And we also do a lot of hunting, right? Hunting has not been interrupted either. There are 4 big game we hunt for, and they're not around here anymore, 2 of them aren't, but we go for deer, black bear, moose, elk, all different ways of hunting. You can use bow and arrow. This is my buddy Tim, he's plucking a turkey. Bow and arrow, deadfall traps. Then you dig a big hole in the ground, you put brush over that hole, then you put food on that brush, and the bear will come along and go for the food and fall right into the hole. You can use deer snares, right? It's a young tree bent over with a trigger system hooked up with rope, right? Deer will come along, set that trigger off, and be launched up in the air. Back in 1620, was it 20? Yeah, it was 20. When the Pilgrims arrived on Cape Cod, there was a guy named William Bradford, right? He wasn't governor yet. He was future governor to be. He was scouting out the land on Cape Cod, deciding whether they would stay or not, right? And guess what he stepped on? He stepped on the deer and it got launched up in the air. He didn't die. People was like, did he die? No, he didn't die. No, he lived a long life, you know, became governor, but the rest of his life he complained about how sore his hip was. So we go from turkeys, goose, partridge, quail, ducks, small animals like raccoons, squirrels, rabbits. You guys like skunk?
No.
Anybody like to taste a skunk?
Never had it.
Never had it.
No.
There's a certain way you catch a skunk, right? You know how? Very carefully, right? Very carefully. You get two boys, right? One boy would be in front of the skunk distracting him. Another boy would sneak upon him from behind. He would grab his tail and lift him off the ground. In order for a skunk to spray, he has to be on all fours, putting pressure on his hind legs to release the stink glands. You get him up there, yeah, you can't do that. You bang him over the head, very carefully cut him open, and take those stink glands out, right? And you can bury the stink glands, although elders tell me all the time, that was used, and some people still use it for arthritis. I've never tried it, but it tastes like sweet chicken. You take the skin, you can tan the skin. How you tan the skin? You take the brain of the animal and rub the brain into the skin. The brain has proteins and enzymes which will break down the skin to make it soft. Each animal has enough brain to tan its own hide. Can we say that about all humans? Oh. The weaving is, our Wampanoag women are well-known weavers, right? A lot of their work is at the National Museum of American Indian down in DC. And like at Comey Wild Horses, your Daisy Moores, your Linda Coombses. We had string. We made string for different types of plant fibers. We can use milkweed, dog bane, and the bark of a basswood tree. We take the fibers out. We work it together on our leg. When the Pilgrims got here, they wrote down that Wampanoag woman was making string so fast that the eyes couldn't keep up with. We had small bags. We had bushel bags for corn. Yeah, so all different sizes. You dye it with different types of berries, and also different colors of roots from the ground. I know it's like Comey Wild Horse. She's Mashpee Wampanoag. I don't think I've seen her not weaving. I call her the Wampanoag bag lady because she always has something on her. You'd be having a conversation when you're weaving a belt, weaving a bag. Her fingers are always moving. She does some great work. Okay, you can see the interior of the house. This is part of the Wampanoag way too. It might be a third grade video, but it's pretty interesting. It's got a lot of information in it for a 12-minute video. Show Catherine and Storm drinking the tea they just made. That's her older sister. But you can see the way the house is shaped. The reason it gets so warm inside is the way the house is shaped. Heat's gonna rise from the fires. We have mats on the walls. Because it's round, heat will go up, go down underneath the mats, force the cold air onto the fire, and keeps the warm air going around in circles. It's a system, right?
Yeah.
It's a really good system. They get as warm as you want them to get. They're also aerodynamic to the winds. I'm gonna date myself here, right? I'm gonna ask you guys might remember this. When was the last major hurricane we had come up the coast? Back in '91, right?
Yeah.
I was working at Plymouth, and these houses stood up to the hurricane because the winds can't get trapped. You don't have corners, so the winds go right around. And I was watching the Weather Channel one day, and they were caught in a horrible storm in the Keys in Florida. They saw literally houses going down right in front of their face. Mm-hmm. So they saw this one dome-shaped house. They were banging on the door. Let us in, let us in. This is the Weather Channel with those big vehicles. But the guy let him in, and he was an architect who built that house on purpose so it was round. Because he knew that there was always storms coming up through the Keys, so. Yeah. That's my oldest daughter too, right there. Yeah. Okay. That in a nutshell is kind of, we hunted a lot during the winter. We gathered wood. The girls would be cooking inside, making clothing, spend more time inside. But it wasn't an hourly schedule. It's never been like that, right? We go by seasons. You know, it wasn't survival. A lot of people, how'd you survive back then? We just didn't roll over bed one morning, oh geez, what do I do today? There's a system set up for thousands of years. You were taught this to your elders, and still taught today like that. So it was a different way of living, a lot easier. I know how this lived back then. I know how this lived now. It's a lot easier back then, in my opinion. Healthier, the food was healthier, the meat were lean. You didn't go for animals and eat other animals. You ate a lot of berries, you ate a lot of vegetables, a lot of fish, a lot of teas, a lot of water. Really healthy. That's kind of like what the doctor's trying to prescribe today, right? Very, very low cholesterol diet. We lived to the 80s and 90s. Even the Pilgrims went down Cape one time, and they noticed a Wampanoag woman, she said, looked over 100 years old, which wouldn't be shocking at all. This was normal for our people. This was normal, right? Until there was interruption and disruption. All right, you hear these people, right? You hear the English, the French, the Dutch coming over. You hear about the Pilgrims Shore in 1620, but there were people coming over here long before that. And there've been titles put on these people. They're fishermen, they're explorers, they're traders. If you're gonna say that, you have to say enslavers too. Because this is what they did, and this was not everyone, but enough to say this is what they wrote down. They even wrote down where they took Native people and how many they took from where. You guys heard of John Smith? He mapped out New England back in 1614, right? When John Smith left, this is where a lot of dates got come in right now, so make sure you keep this in your mind right there, because I'm gonna go back and forth. 1614, John Smith leaves New England, was New England today, and he leaves us captain behind, fishing captain, Hunt, Thomas Hunt. Thomas Hunt stops in Patuxent, known as Plymouth today, and takes 19 Patuxent as slaves. He goes down Cape and takes 8 Nauset as slaves. The leader of that community was Aspinet. They take them over to Spain. A lot was sold there. The remainder was sold to England. One of those guys was Squanto, okay? Known as Squanto. Squanto lives in England with a merchant named John Slaney for about 5 years, from 1614 to 1619. When he's over England, London, for those 5 years, the most devastating thing happened to our people here. And he didn't realize it because he was over England. And what he was doing over there, he was an exotic specimen, putting windows, tranced around. The idea a lot of the time, let's teach this native person how to speak English, then let's bring them back over as guides and interpreters. On the most part, we didn't come back because we died from disease, something we had no immunity to, right? Squanto did come back though, we'll talk about that in a minute. But when he was over there, from 1614 to 1619, the most devastating thing, like I said, happened to our people happened, this plague. Right before the Pilgrims arrived here, up to 90% of our people, 80-90% wiped out within 2 or 3 years. Skin turned yellow, open sores in their body. People died within 2 or 3 days. What was it? Common thought of the years, hepatitis. We don't think about smallpox. We know smallpox happened in 1623. Huge outbreak in 1633. What disease control came out with about 15 years ago, they're calling it leptospirosis, right? And they say that's from French trade ships up north, northern Maine, Canada. And what they would have on those trade ships was rats. The rats would get off, and the fetus of the rats will get into the water system, creating an infectious liver disease that swept along the coastline, okay? Went 30, 40 miles inland. And it was weird. It stopped to this track, right dead to this tracks, right by Narragansett Bay in Rhode Island. Any guesses on why that? I have 2 guesses myself. As half the disease go over water, that could be it right there. Also, the Wampanoags and the Narragansetts didn't like each other at that time. And if you don't like each other, for whatever reason, you're not gonna have that physical contact with each other, right? We know like Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, Cutty Hunk, those names on there really weren't affected by the plague a whole lot because they're all in the ocean. The mainlanders, yeah, took a huge hit, especially around Patuxent, Plymouth. So it was set up nicely, not on purpose, but for the Pilgrims when they got here, because that whole area was clear. Everybody knows what this ship is, right? The Mayflower. Okay, this comes. They come over in 1620, land on Cape in September. A few things happened down there, right? A lot of they took native storage pits full of corn. There was 2 groups of men, right? One group of men went out, found native burials, and took from the native burials. Another group of men went out. They say more of a high statue. Turned over burials and figured out it was a burial and reburied the people. First encounter broke out, meaning a first fight between the 2 people. It happened down in Nauset, all right? Why this happened, corn taken, turning over graves, or was it Thomas Hunt who took 8 Nauset earlier, 6 years earlier, as slaves? You put all those factors together and there's something gonna happen. So musket balls were shot off, arrows were shot off, nobody died, but the English were basically forced out, and that's when they went to what is known as Patuxet by Plymouth today. And they were allowed to stay there because that was devastated, and we as a people did not believe in ownership of land. We believe if nobody lives there, go ahead and settle there. And there was nobody probably lived within 10, 15 miles of the area because of that huge outbreak earlier. And that's when they started building, right? They started building in December, and January and February was considered to be the deadliest months. A lot of English died at those months, right? There's first four encounters of Native people, not encounters, but first they saw 4 groups of Native people. One on Clark's Island, which is 3 miles up in Plymouth. They said they saw Wampanoag people walking their dogs through the woods, and they saw 2 Native people on a hill. So they waved toward each other. Neither one went toward each other, but they heard a lot of voices beyond the hill. Samoset, yeah. What was going on in England at that time too? I'm gonna go back a little bit here to 1619, right? What was going on? There was a very wealthy man named Fernando Gorges, right? He was funding a lot of these trips over, and he was asking around, who's from Plymouth, known as Plymouth today? They go, well, Squanto is. But Squanto now is with Captain Mason up in Newfoundland. So Thomas Dermer, I'm gonna hire you as a captain. You go get Squanto and go down the coast and do another trip, explore. And that's what he did. 1619, right? Thomas Hunt finds Squanto. He's going down the coast of Maine. Imagine what he was thinking. All these people dying. Never heard of the plague before. Because he came right after. They stopped in Mohegan Island, which is in Maine, and picked up a chief named Sagamore named Samoset. Samoset knew a lot of the English captains' names. He dealt with them a lot. Did he go voluntarily or not? I don't know. But he was on that ship with Dermer and Squanto. They go by Plymouth, see the devastation there. They go to what is known as Martha's Vineyard, what we call Nope, right? And when Dermer's ship comes close to Nope, he gets bombarded with arrows, his ship. And that's when Squanto and Samoset had a chance to jump over and swim to shore and kind of escape, right? Why was that ship bombarded with arrows? Another date I'm going to throw at you, 1614. Ship comes over, I think it was Captain Hobson. 1614 goes to Martha's Vineyard and takes a Wampanoag chief named Epinow and a few other Native people over to England. This is 1611, I should say. So he's over England, Epinow being a person of high stature, a chief, and he was a slave, 1614 comes, Gorges comes up to him. So Fernando Gorges said, hey, Epinow, come here. You're from over there, right? Is there gold there? There's no gold over Martha's Vineyard. But Epinow, being a smart man, said, yeah, there's plenty of gold there. You bring me back home, my friends, I'll show you where the gold's at. So in 1614, I think it was Captain Howland, I want to say, they brought him back over to his homeland, and Epinow yelled out something in native tongue. His men bombarded the ship, and he got a chance to escape also. Fast forward 5 years to Dermer, he said, this ain't gonna happen again. And that's when he attacked Dermer's ship. So that's a lot of bouncing back and forth with times. And what happens to Samoset and Squanto, we think it's kind of grayish there. We think they went to go move with Massasoit's community of Pokanoket, which is in Bristol, Rhode Island. Fast forward again to 1621, right? Pilgrims are building their houses in March of 1621. So Massasoit, his community being 40 miles west, hears about these people doing all this building. One thing we were used to, right, is people coming over. We weren't used to people coming over and staying. But these people he thought might have been different because they brought women and children with them. So he goes, I think he did this on purpose, because Samoset wasn't Wampanoag, but could speak English. He goes up to Samoset, why don't you go in to Patuxet and find out what these people are doing? So March of 1621, Samoset walks in and greets them in an English greeting, right? And they were shocked at seeing a savage could speak English to him. He tells them about the area. He tells them about the plague that hit. He actually stays overnight, right? He stays overnight in Stephen Hopkins' house, which I think is kind of weird and just knowing these people. And I'm thinking too, why was it Stephen Hopkins? So I asked my buddy who's an English scholar, right? He said, well, Darius, Stephen Hopkins was the only Englishman who ever dealt with Native people before, because he was in Jamestown back in 1607, which made sense. If you're gonna stay in somebody's house, you want to be kind of familiar with the people, right? Next morning, Sam wakes up, says, you know what, I'm not from here, I'm gonna bring you a leader who is. He goes back and tells Massasoit it was all right to come along. Massasoit brings himself, 60 of his men, his brother being a sub-chief, Quataquina, and makes that very, very famous treaty with the two people. Basically what the treaty stated was, if you go to battle, I'm gonna help you out, and if I go to battle, you help me out. Aside from that, we kind of keep separate lives, you know? Why did we need an ally? We were being encroached upon by the Narragansetts because they weren't affected by the plague. We felt the pressure. And Massasoit might have been thinking, hey, Narragansett probably was thinking, if Massasoit's making a treaty with one ship, he might be making a treaty with all the ships coming back and forth. And the Englishman had the musket, and the musket was something of difference and intimidation, right, at times. Why did the English need an ally? How you really felt to these people being here would go from community to community, from person to person. If your brother, your father got taken as a slave, you're not gonna like any Englishman. That's the way it is, right? We know Wampanoag leaders named Combatan, Canonicus, did not like what Massasoit was doing because of what happened in the past when it came to enslavement. But that treaty between the two people from 1621, there was no major outbreak of war in Massachusetts, not until 1675. Outside of Massachusetts, you had the Pequot Massacre, sure, in 1636, going into 37. But Bradford, Massasoit, they kind of died around the same time. Bradford died, I think, in 1658. Massasoit died in 1660. Everybody knows about this, right? Thanksgiving. They don't ever mention turkey being at that feast. You know that? They mentioned fowl being there. Fowl could have been any type of bird. Could have been duck, could have been goose, could have been partridge, right? Or could have been turkey. We don't even know if Massasoit was invited this first year. Squanto taught him how to plant corn. That's a very famous story, how they put a fish under the mound and plant the corn. And that first year, they had a big harvest, right? Because late September, early October, not on the third or fourth Thursday of November, that's not harvest time, right? Massasoit shows up. He shows up, he comes with 90 men. Now they come to dinner and bring 90 men. He comes with 90 men and he gifts Bradford with 5 deer. He has sent his men out. But for us, when you hunt, those deer have to be bled out for a couple days, maybe. So those deer were meant there already. He brought them already ready to eat, you know? It goes on for 3 days. It was dancing, singing, and feasting. It was a dinner of diplomacy, right? A dinner of diplomacy. It's hard to call each other friends because you didn't know each other. You live in the same way for thousands of years. And you come together like that, you're not getting hit off right away, but you can do business. So a lot of those old pictures you see, Pilgrims outnumbered Native people, it was the opposite. We outnumbered them 2 or 3 to 1 at that feast. And it happened 1 year. This guy right here, if it wasn't because of him, history would have been different today. Massasoit's community was 40 miles west. He needed a liaison out here in Plymouth to make sure everything's going all right? And he said Hoppenbach. Hoppenbach knew how to speak English. Where he learned, we don't know. We don't exactly know, but Massasoit wanted to send him out here, could not. He lived in between Stephen Hopkins and Howland's cornfields. He lived probably in a traditional house. They say he had over 10 people in his family, right? More than one wife. But when I say that, right, you gotta put yourself in what the English are looking at. Because they didn't live like we lived. And Englishmen's houses, husband, wife, kids. Our houses was husband, wife, kids, aunts, grandmothers. So they might be looking at a sister when they say wives. But we know one of his wives for sure had a high stature. I wish they don't put names on these women, these native women, which I'm really upset at, you know. I really like to know, especially this woman, Hoppenbach's wife, because he sends her on trips all the time to deliver messages from Massasoit. Very important messages to deliver, but they never put a name on her. But he lived with the English, amongst English. I guess the closest native that they were considered to be a friend. Welcome to go into the village anytime you wanted to go in. From 1621 to early 1630s, right? They say in the records that he went to go live with Miles Standish in Duxbury. We don't know what happened to his family. No idea. But for those 15 years, which was early, he was a very important man to keep out there. Like I said, history would have been different. We know Massasoit. Okay, Massasoit, that's a name. Another name he had was Usamiquin, which means yellow feather. He always wore a yellow eagle feather in his hair. He always wears black wolf, was meant for high stature. Not everybody would have black wolves. 1621 makes a treaty. He comes up for Thanksgiving, the harvest feast. In 1623, he comes up to Governor Bradford's wedding, right? This time we know he was invited, right? And when Massasoit comes up this time, they say he brings 6 score of men. If you don't know what a score is 20 people. So he brings 120 men with him. And they say he brought, I think, 6 other leaders from different communities with their wives. Massasoit brings his wife, and also brings his little boy, his oldest boy, which his name is Warm Sutter. And Bradford had a lot of people from England over, right? Ships were coming in all the time for this wedding. And this is kind of a different request, right? One of Bradford's guests from England requested he asked Massasoit if he could have his son. Warm Sutter. Massasoit said, no, you can't have my son. What that meant, I have no idea. But 1623, swear. From 1623 to 1639, there's not a whole lot written about the two cultures interacting. That's 16 years, right? Massasoit shows up in the record books again in 1639, coming out to Plymouth Colony with his son, Warm Sutter, who they called Alexander. He reassures the treaty between the two people, and he goes back home. And there's some land cases going on in the 40s with him. He passes away in 1660, though. But there's a lot going on between 1639 and 1660, right? One of the first parts of colonization, when people were coming over, is whether they didn't understand our ways of doing things or did not want to understand it. Our ceremonies, our songs. And so you would have seen praying towns popping up, right? You had missionaries. You had your John Elliots. You had your John Cottonwoods. Thomas Mayhews over the vineyard. Richard Bournes around my area, right? And they were forming these praying towns and teaching Christianity, right? The first praying town was Natick in 1651, produced by John Eliot. But there's a lot of people over the vineyard too, the Mayhews and Cottonwoods. But there was one guy named Hyatt Coombs, who was a native guy, right? He lived in Edgartown. They say Hyatt Coombs knew the King James Bible so well, this is during the 1640s, that he was teaching English people their religion. But not everybody liked this, right? He was called to Chappaquiddick by a Wampanoag, the chief over there. He said, what are you doing, Hyatt Coombs? We have our own ways of doing things, and punched him in the face. Okay? You go back to 1651 with John Eliot's work. He hired on native interpreters, native Wampanoag people, and wrote the King James Bible in Wampanoag. And you can see how that helped us out later on in time. That one Bible written in Wampanoag. But he's also taking confessions from native people. Write this down. This is a great book, pamphlets into a book. It's called Tears of Repentance, right? By John Eliot. He's taking these real native confessions from chiefs, leaders, ordinary native people, and he was sending these over to England, to London, to get more funding for his work over here. And this was produced back in 1653. But I got the book myself, and it's kind of heart-wrenching because you're reading this through, right? And like, do they really understand what they're confessing to? The native people? I don't think so. Because if you take a look at it, you can go right into it. They call it Tears of Repentance because there's tears going right into the pages of the book when they're writing. Okay, Massasoit, Hyatt Coombs, right? You already mentioned him, how he knew the King James Bible and how he switched over to Christianity also. This was his son, Joel Hyatt Coombs. I'm a Coombs, by the way, so this is my relatives. back in 1665, you had 5 Native people that went to Harvard University. It was an English and Native college, right? Out of those 5 people, 1 graduated. I think 3 Nipmuc left the school, and the 2 other were from the vineyard, Joel and Caleb. There's a book about them now, Caleb's Crossing, right? Caleb graduated, Joel did not. 2 weeks before graduation, Joel went home to the vineyard. And on the way back, they stopped in Nantucket, and he got killed. He was considered to be valedictorian, right, of his class. And this is 2 weeks before graduation. So what Harvard University did, they invited my family up there back in, I think, '09, I want to say, and they gave us a posthumous degree in his name, which they rarely do, this sits in my office right now, so. And he's also one of the guys that translated the Bible. So Joel, yeah. Okay, now this, I also did a study too, right? I wanted to find out when Plymouth Colony made the laws for us not having our ceremonies anymore. I wanted to find this out, right? So I went into digitalized records of Plymouth Colony and Mashpee, and you guys can find this too. They all are in volumes of decades, right? 1630s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And unfortunately, you can see the decline between the 2 people. The first generation got along well enough, but you get the second generation coming over and growing up, and they really didn't like each other. The 60s were awful. Oh, so many things went on there in the 60s. But when I was looking at doing my research, I found that first law, and it wasn't Plymouth Colony, it was Mashpee. And Mashpee is Boston, right? And it states this, it goes like this. November 4th, 1646. If any Indian is caught powwowing or celebrating their false gods on English lands, they shall be fined 10 pounds. And so I asked my friend, who's an English scholar, what does that mean, 10 pounds? Well, Darius, what it means is that's a half a year's salary for an Englishman back then. Could you imagine what it meant for us? And them outlawing, trying to outlaw our ceremonies means, and our songs, we couldn't sing our songs anymore. We only have a handful of original songs left. We got a lot of songs gifted to us by the Haudenosaunee up in New York and Canada, but we don't have a lot of our originals anymore. Maybe literally 3 or 4 tops, because the rest have been washed away. That's really interesting to read too, those laws. Kirstin, I can probably send it to you too if you like. It is. So you got the 1660s, right? Massasoit dies. Who takes over leadership is his oldest son, Warm Sutter. They called Alexander, right? In 1662, they asked Alexander to come to Duxbury about illegal land sales. Duxbury was still Plymouth Colony. So he did, he brought his boy, and they gave him something to eat, something to drink, asked him questions about the land sales, sent him on his way, but kept his boy. On the way home, he died. So you got an idea what happened to him, right? He was poisoned. Who takes over leadership after Alexander? Warm Sutter is his brother, Metacomet, and known as King Philip. They call him King Philip. And he wasn't having it. There was one time what happened in 1671, he was called to court, right? The Plymouth Colony, about illegal gun sales. And so he went to go ask for help, right? He went to Mashpee, asked for help. Plymouth Colony setting all these laws against our people. Okay, we'll help you out. What they did, they got the government of Connecticut and Rhode Island, Mashpee, and Plymouth Colony all together and called Metacomet up there in 1671 and pretty much levied them with fines, penalties. It was awful. And by that time, he was like, I'm done. And the deadliest war breaks out in 1675, known as the King Philip's War. Still today, it's considered to be the bloodiest, deadliest war per capita in New England. You had Native people going against the English. Bottom line, it's 2 different ways to think about land. One side believed in ownership, the other side didn't. You know? I won't go into the battles a whole lot. I usually don't, but Metacomet was found out at his home in Mount Hope, which is Poconoket, Bristol. And we was found by Benjamin Church, right? And what's kind of weird is how Benjamin Church found him. He didn't find him himself. He had a native guide bring him to him, show him where Metacomet was, because he thought he was doing the right thing, right? And when they found Metacomet, they dismantled his body limb by limb And they took his head and brought it to Plymouth and put it on the post for 20 years. Wait a second, hold on. He got a wife and a boy. What can we do with them? We can't kill them because that's not right. But what we can do is we can sell them off as slaves, and that's what they did. I can't think of a silver lining of slavery. The best I can come up with is our people were sold all throughout the Caribbean, right? Bermuda. And the folks out of Bermuda, the Pequots and Narragansetts and Wampanoag, who are sold down there, still have their cultural identity. They know who they are as a people. So we go down there and visit them one year, and they come up, and the following year come to their powwow. Imagine that, being that a slave all those times and still have your cultural identity. And after the war, not a lot of things happened to the good stuff that happened to the losers, right? We lost the war eventually. And there's a lot of laws for 1700, 1742. One of the Massachusetts Indian laws, they call it. They said if you're a remnant of a tribe in Massachusetts, that's what the word they use, remnants. You have to move to one of 4 locations. You have to move to Mashpee, which I'm from. You have to move to Aquina, which is over the vineyard. You have to move to Heron Pond, which is by the Cape Cod Canal. Or you have to move to Grafton. Wampanoag people never moved to Grafton, in my opinion, because we know that was Nipmuc country out there. Well, the rest dispersed into different communities. So Mashpee hasn't always been Mashpee. On the most part, yeah, but you got different communities that were forced down there. And it was all the land. Now, why is this up here? 1830 Indian Removal Act. This is known for a lot of folks as the Trail of Tears by the Cherokee that were forced out of their homeland. I was in Oklahoma a couple of years ago at a conference. I saw so many different indigenous people out there who were forced away from their homeland, who live out there now. And the Cherokee were forced out there, Comanche, a lot of people. And I walked in there at Walmart. There's more Native people than non-Native in there. I'm like, well, this is kind of cool. But the reason I bring this up is because those agents came to my area too, in Mashpee, right? And they were ready to remove us, relocate us. But there was one non-Native voice that spoke up, right? I think his name was Phineas Fish, I want to say. He was considered to be an overseer, an English overseer. He said, if you bring the Mashpee Wampanoag people away from their homeland, they're going to die. The reason they're going to die is they rely on seafood on their diet. And they believed him. So we were left alone in our homeland. That's why I still live there, right? This is another study you guys can do. It's called the Morse Report that was produced by the government. And that comes up. Okay, this is a sign going in Mashpee, incorporated in 1870. They have the same sign over Martha's Vineyard over Aquina. And what means to me, it was taken, right? It was formed into a township at that time. We were given back, I think, 25 acres per family. But because it's a township now, people are taxed on their land. And a lot of us, we're not wealthy people. A lot of us lost our land. Now, where I live, Cape Cod, I think it's the most visited tourist area in the United States, right? Did not become Cape Cod until the 1940s and 50s. And still in Mashpee, there was mainly Wampanoag population living there, right? From 1970 to mid-1990s, Mashpee was the fastest developing town in Massachusetts. Yeah. Whaling, big part of what we did. We did a lot of whaling during the 19th and 18th century, mainly during the 19th. At our Mashpee Wampanoag Museum, we have an exhibit, actually we turned into a traveling exhibit. And it states all the whalers, all the ships that went out. It shows a global map, right? And on that global map, there's a lot of red dots. It's easy to read. An elementary kid can read this, right? So it's numbered. So you look under, okay, 13. Then you go on the list of look under 13, find the list of the name of the captain, the name of the boat, the Native people that went out, and if they came back. Because a lot of us did not come back. A lot of us stayed in port. A lot of us died. And we went voluntarily or not voluntarily. It was both. So there's literally Native people all around the world, Wampanoag people. There's a lot of mutinies on these ships. It's a great exhibit. Like I said, we turned it into an educational traveling exhibit now. It was produced by Ramona Peters, who's a highly respected elder in my community, and Jason Mancini, who used to be the director of the Pequot Museum in Connecticut. You can see us, that's a Mashpee right there, a dugout canoe. We went for our small whales back then, but later on in time, we went for the big ones and the big ships. And our people were looked highly upon once we got back. Those people who were whaling were kind of like our government officials for our tribe. for a long number of years, our selectmen. Yeah, so whaling is a huge part. And there was also some people got wealthy enough in whaling as a Wampanoag person own their own ships. This is my wife again. Call her Tootie. She does language. She teaches language. That's her love, right? One of them at least. This is a true story, right? We came this far from losing our language, that far. In the early 1900s, if you weren't speaking English, you weren't speaking the right language, so you'd be made fun of, ridiculed, no matter what culture you were. This happened to a lot of cultures of people. And there weren't a lot of people speaking it anymore. Back in the 1990s, there's a woman from our community named Jessie Little Beard. And she said she was having dreams, right? And people come into her dreams and they were speaking a different language. She did not know the language. She said the faces looked familiar, but did not know their names. One of the dreams, the people came in again and said, if the Wampanoag people had the opportunity to have their language back, would they say yes? So she took it upon herself, went around to the community and asked them, do you want to see Wampanoag spoken again? And of course, everybody said yes, right? So she went to MIT, graduated with a degree in linguistics, so started piecing the language back together again. Wow. How this was done. Some family members could still speak it, elders. Similar language families, right? I remember what I spoke on before, what John Eliot did. He wrote the King James Bible in Wampanoag. And that helped bring our language full circle again. So today we have a Montessori school that teaches kids pre-K through, I think, 3rd grade right now. There's immersion classes, that's all spoken as Wampanoag. We have some fluent speakers, but it's still in the infant stages, right? But that's my wife's love, you know, so. And I myself do work a lot of tribal kids in the school systems around. And that's a really cool story. This is our government center. I'm probably gonna take a better picture. This is just a sign. It's a community government center. We have our leaders there, our chair, our vice chair, our treasurer. We have natural resources. We have education. We have TIPO, elders department. What else we got in there? Our tribal court. We have tribal court. Historical preservation. A few years back, our land was threatened to be taken out of trust. Actually, it was taken out of trust. And being our land, what we have for land today is 291 acres. Not a lot. That's not a lot of land. We use it as our housing. It's our ceremonial grounds where our government building is, powwow grounds. And that was taken out of trust. And they said, you know what? I will tell you why it was taken out of trust. This is the Department of Interior, because you guys were not under federal jurisdiction by 1934. And that's what they have in the books. If you're not under federal jurisdiction by 1934, we can take your land out of trust. So we brought in the court. We brought the federal government to court. We coached up our lawyers. We have a lot of scholars in our community. And we brought up the Carlisle School, right? And the judge brought it up too. So we asked the lawyer for the Department of Interior. I remember doing that. I was mowing my lawn, breaking my lawn. I'm listening to this trial going on. And then the judge asked the lawyer for the Department of Interior, do you know what the Carlisle School is? And she wouldn't answer. He asked her again, do you know what the Carlisle School is? Still wouldn't answer. He goes, you know what? I know what you're doing. I know exactly what you're doing. And I'll come back with a verdict in a week or so. He came back with a verdict and our land was protected once again. For ones who don't know what the Carlisle School is, back in the 1880s, after they called the Indian Wars were over, there were boarding schools set up. The first one being in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And the head of that school, his slogan was, kill the Indian and save the man. And our kids, Mashpee Wampanoag kids, were taken from our homes and brought to the Carlisle School, starting out in the 1880s. And by the way, it was under federal jurisdiction. So we brought that up. We brought up the Morse Report, which happened in 1830s, 1840s. And yeah, we got our land back in trust, which is it's good. Not a whole lot, but it's there. Okay, this is our powwow. We invite you guys, come on up next year, take a trip. Hop in the bus, right? Mm-hmm. Come. Yeah, we open gates around 10 in the mornings, July 4th weekend. We'll be dancing, you can immerse yourself in the culture. If you come on the third day of the powwow, we have a clam bake that feeds 150 people. If you like shellfish, you can see how a clam bake is traditionally done with fire, with stone and wood, and rockweed. We immerse you, we invite the public to come and do some dances with us. It's a fun time. Like I said, we have over 10,000 people visit us. Yeah. One of the oldest powwows in New England. It's going on 103 years ago. We have special dances too, right? That's myself, a lot of our family. And our specials is, this was for my brother. Unfortunately, he got killed in '97. And think about my brother, he could dance, he could jam. That boy could hit way up better than I can. Melvin, right? His favorite dance was he loved doing the crow hop. So he imitated the crow hop. So we invite all the men out there, and I like seeing them do the crow hop. When we have judges, we pick the winner and such. And that year, it was John Thomas, and ironically, it's Narragansett who won it that year. Yeah, so we do that every year from honoring my brother. We try not to forget the ones who paved the way for us over the years, you know. And like I said, my brother can dance. So yeah, that's my presentation, guys. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, I can take some questions.
You need to get a video of the crow dance.
Of the what?
Of the dance.
Oh, I know, huh?
Or not, let's do it right now.
Can you do it?
Let's see
You guys want to hear a song?
Yeah.
I do this a lot with the kids.
Oh,
Yeah, I
We're
teach.
big kids.
We are the other kids,
We
okay?
have big kids.
Okay, then you guys sing along with me then.
all right.
So let's see here. What can I just clap? So this is a stomp dance, right? And what goes on with it is a stomp dance song, but you can dance along with it. And I have the kids line up behind me and they're stomping their feet as we go. The idea is to wake up the ancestors who can't dance. You got the trees, the deer, the ones who like paved the way for us being here today. And so when I say hamba di baja, you say hamba ya. No, hold on. When I say hamba di baja, you say hamba ya ska, hamba di baja. Hamba ya ska, hamba di baja. Hamba ya ska, hamba di baja. Hamba ya ska. Oh eh oh eh. 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 Hey 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 ya. Hey 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 ya. Hey 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 ya. Hey 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 ya. Hey 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 ya. Hey 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 ya. But really, I get the kids dancing all around the table. And they go by the principal's office. And, so yeah.
That's cool.
Yes.
There is a powwow that happens in Attleboro. Is that like an offshoot or?
It's. I think that's tribal. Was that? I can't remember the name of
I
it.
think it's like La Salette Shrine area or something. I
Yeah.
didn't know if that's just a separate
There's no. If you
family thing.
yeah, it's Wampanoag people around here too. This is Wampanoag country, you know. I'm not sure we'll put on that one, but if you Google tribal powwows and for 2026, they'll all pop up. They start happening in spring, go all throughout summer. Every weekend you can see where a powwow is at. And that's what people do for a living. They just travel. If you're a good dancer, great. That's what my son-in-law does. He drums and dances. He'll travel 6 states over for a powwow. Like I was going across the street, he does it all the time. That's the people I'm visiting tomorrow down in Virginia. Yeah, Marcus. He's the people down in Virginia that hollow off the pony. Similar to cousins with the Lumbee people down there. So my second oldest daughter married into that community down there. Yes.
Where in Mashpee is it located?
The powwow?
Mhm.
It's located on South Cape Road?
Okay, yep.
Yeah. It's right by New Seabury?
Yes, I do.
Right in front of the, right back on the same road. You come up the road, head to New Seabury. Yeah,
Yep.
it's on the right hand side. You see our tribal building, and our grounds are literally right next to it.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, come on up. Come check us out.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember when it was a journal.
Anything else, folks?
I have a question about, but I gotta show you a map
Mhm.
if I do it. Do you know the Agawam River in Wareham?
Yeah.
Okay, so I heard a long time ago, about 20 years ago, from a guy in Plymouth, where I was working at the time, that used to be a Wampanoag canoe trail
Mm-hmm.
that
I
would
paddle that.
give you from the, Cape Cod Bay to Buzzards Bay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I even heard that it might have even went out to Plymouth, but so many things been dammed up over the years. But you have to remember that all the rivers, the ocean, they all kind of intertwine, and they were considered to be the highways back then. That's how you got around.
Yeah,
Use your boats, your machine axles to travel. You can walk, you can run, sure. And it wasn't unusual people running 20, 30 miles in a day. That was normal back then.
wow.
You know, they were really healthy. Horses weren't seen around here not until the 1640s or 50s, and they were introduced by the English up in Mass Bay. So before that time, you needed to get one place to another. You walked, you ran, and you had footpaths going all around. A lot of these footpaths were made into roads. You know, you got Route 1, you got Route 44. Those are all native footpaths. Yeah.
But he said that halfway pond in Plymouth
I know
was
halfway.
halfway between the two bays.
Yeah, I can see that because Halfway Pond's located right at the bottom of the canal down there.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's got a nice herring run in there. I grew up in Plymouth. I lived in Plymouth too.
okay.
Plymouth has 365 ponds.
Yeah,
It's the biggest township, they say, east of the Mississippi River.
that's crazy.
Yeah, I lived on White Island Pond in Plymouth.
Where?
White Island.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So that's where I grew up. Yes.
As the English migrants, kept on coming to Plymouth and Mass Bay, and they came west to settle in this area,
Mm-hmm.
so they purchased land.
Yeah.
So is it more they were purchasing, like today we'd say mineral rights, and that type of thing? So, the settlements they purchased, they weren't really, the natives, indigenous were not selling the land so much?
I don't think a lot of people understood what they were doing.
Yeah.
You know, you got to say that couture was sold for a kettle and a hoe. They say, you say you got Bridgewater sold by Massaw on the first land sales, I think in 1649, and he was given 3 moose, some knives, like a coat, and these way we think as a people. You want to come with us? Sure, come live amongst us, right? You want to gift us something? Great. We're a gifting people. We do the same thing. Did he understand the full scale of a land sale?
No.
No, I don't think so. Not until later on.
Concept was
Not until later on when it became too late, Because they started building fences around where they lived, right? And they might see a native person walk across what they would call their backyard, and they would say, "You can't be here no more because this is mine." And native people had no way of thought like that. What do you mean this is yours? No, we believe this is part of you. I do that all my presentations, no matter what age you are. Where you stand, where I stand, where we say is part of who we are. That's very important. So, same thing where I do with kids. I go, I show them our dolls. We don't put faces on our dolls. The reason we don't put faces is we don't raise our kids treating people differently just the way they look. And they understand that. I go, I'm not better than you. You're not better than me. Right? We should care for each other, respect each other, and lift each other up, right? You're not born hating people. You're taught that. Hating a culture. And then that's why I love working with kids. They're so innocent, I work, They'll say, "Hey, you don't know what's going to come out of their mouth." They're straight, they're honest, no filter. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.